everybody, my name is Harry and today I'm going to be speaking about Affinity Photo. What is Affinity Photo? Affinity Photo is a program created by a company called Serif, and Affinity Photo is directly trying to compete against Adobe Photoshop. So this is quite big. Photoshop has had a virtual monopoly for many years, and the fact that someone is coming in and creating a new product is quite a big deal. So let's talk about the big things about Affinity Photo. Well, firstly, as I said, it's competing against Photoshop. That's pretty big. It was created from scratch over 5 years, right? So that means that instead of it carrying over legacy coding from previous operating systems, which Adobe Photoshop does, it's created from scratch for Mac OS X, and that's a big deal as well because a lot of designers do use Mac. So the fact that they have something purposely coded for Mac and performs incredibly well is it's pretty good. Another big thing about Affinity Photo is the price, and that you can purchase it outright. Adobe Photoshop, in fact, in Adobe Creative Cloud, works on a subscription model, which means if a lot of people have said you effectively have to rent your tools for your own work, and a lot of people felt that was a bit too draconian, a bit too heavy-handed. Whereas with an outright model, you can purchase the software, you can install it on a secondary computer, a backup computer, instead of having to pay the full price for updates all the time. Affinity Photo is an outright price, so that's quite big. And in some ways, Affinity Photo is actually better than Photoshop. And we'll see this as we jump in. There's some things which Photoshop normally hides, which you have to dig to. Affinity Photo puts it out in the open. So that's quite a welcome surprise. So enough with my jibber jabber, let's jump on right in. So a little something about myself. I have 10 years of Photoshop experience. I use Photoshop every day in my current role, but I've only had 3 days of experience with Affinity Photo. So let's see if we can bring in those skills from Photoshop and bring them into Affinity. So different people use Photoshop for different reasons. What I'm going to be showing you today, I'm just going to show you 4 examples of what I use Photoshop for and bring that over into Affinity. So first things first, when you load up Affinity, you have some options. Here you can experiment with some files that they have kindly provided. You can download them if you wanted to. I've already got some files loaded up, and I'll show you where those are. Let's talk about the media browser. In Photoshop CS, when was it? Photoshop CS2, Adobe released the bridge, right? And then they kindly gave us the mini bridge. The mini bridge I thought was pretty awesome, but as soon as I learned how effective it is, what happened was Photoshop Adobe in the Creative Cloud, they axed it in CC. So that was a bit frustrating. Off the bat, we have the mini bridge here, or at least the equivalent I'm just going to make this full screen. I could use that as well if I wanted to. Off the bat, although to be honest, I don't really like using that. I don't know about you guys, I don't really like using that. Off the bat, we have something equivalent to the mini bridge. So I'm going to be showing you a few things here, what I have to do, what I do every day. I've got these photos loaded up here already, and that is as I've just dragged it into the browser there, and then you can load up whatever else you wanted to in there. Because it's working with Mac OS, it's got a few things lined up already, a few options there. Cool. So let's talk about raw images. Yes, load please. Oh, that's frustrating. I don't want to show and file, I want to load it. I've actually done too many things at once. Look, this video is going to have a lot of me figuring out what's going on, because this is fairly new to me. So anyway, I've loaded up an image here. On my work, I do a lot of real estate photography. The goal of real estate photography is to try to show the whole room. When you do that, you inevitably get skew lines here. This is because when you use a wide angle lens, science basically. Great. So we want to make that line there straight, and also this is a little bit overexposed, more than a little bit, and the colors are a bit off. Cool. So this is a raw image that I've loaded up now, and we are actually within Affinity's develop persona. So the top left here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 different personas. Personally, I don't know why we have Liquify as a separate persona to work within. I don't understand that, but there it is. You have your photo persona, Liquify persona. Develop is for raw, export is for when you're exporting your final image tab here. I'm just going to adjust the color balance, yeah? So let's see what happens. A little bit bluish. Let's go and change that a little bit more warmer colors. Cool. And it is a little bit overexposed. I'm not so happy with this is the gradient tool. Alright, so now I can change that. Okay. Well, I'm just alright, okay, cool. So we're on the same page. Similar as in camera raw. Cool. I'm fine with that color balance. I can always check it. Take a look at that. That's something you don't get in Photoshop. That little button there is really, really cool. Comparison, before and after. One was too yellow, one is now correct color balance. And this is in Photoshop. This is in RAW, so there is no image loss. Before and after, and direct comparison. And I've also put a little gradient there. I'm happy with that. Now we go to develop. Done. Now we're back into Affinity Photo. The great thing is with Affinity Photo, with editing RAW, and maybe Photoshop will implement this in the future, but the great thing is that you get a one-step process instead of a two-step process. Two-step process being you bring in a raw image into Photoshop. It first has to go via Camera Raw, where you do your raw edits, where you have more room to work with, you have more dynamic range, more flexibility. When you bring it to Photoshop, that's it. It's a JPEG. Then from there, you can do other kinds of edits. With Affinity Photo, you have the ability to go back into the RAW when you need to. There you go. Back into the RAW, make the changes, bring it back into Develop. Yeah, so I'm gonna do that again. I'm gonna go back into RAW, and I'm gonna I don't know, what should I change? Let's make a. I wonder if this will pick up the camera profile. So camera profiles will automatically read that you have a Sigma 8-16 lens, and it'll say, okay, well, we understand the problems with that lens. Unfortunately, this is one of the drawbacks with Affinity Photo. Is not as up to date as Photoshop. Why? Because it's a smaller company. Adobe Photoshop is huge, and this is the first version, right? So that's kind of to be expected. So I don't get my lens profile, which is kind of a shame. Okay, so let's straighten this. This has the perspective tool right here, which is pretty cool. Single plane, that's all great. And now I'm just going to make this line here as straight as possible, as well as the same on this side. Bring it up on this side, and just try to get this room looking like it's not falling over. I'm just bringing up the right hand side. I wonder if that does the trick. Perspective tool is slightly different to what I'm used to, in all honesty, but it's just okay. So that's cool. That looks a lot more straight. Let's get rid of all this, everything here. I don't need this palette open, and that's looking a lot better. Now that's actually done. Cool, great. Now we're going to be working on the next one. It does take a while to load up. That might be an issue. Anyway, there it is. Once again, we get this snazzy little feature where we can see the difference before and after, which is something you don't get in Photoshop. That's probably one of the biggest things I do like about this program, that little feature. So I'm just going to go and clone this out. This is the cameraman. This protruding object is the cameraman, and that's his flash there. He's not using the flash, obviously it's outside, but he's just standing there, and the light behind him is causing a shadow. So we're going to use the clone stamp tool. on Photoshop, the clone stamp tool is S, right? So let's press S and let's see if we get it. What happened there? Yes, there is the clone stamp tool. Here it's called the clone brush tool. Same as before. Pressing spacebar, I get to use the hand tool. Same as in Photoshop. That's great. You can pinch right now. Hang on. Right now I'm pinching on the trackpad, and that's zooming. Or I could just press. I could press Z, and I get. The zoom tool. The zoom tool is not the scrubby zoom which you might be used to at Photoshop. So I don't think I'm going to be using the zoom tool as much. Let's go back. See, Command 0 brings me back, same as in Photoshop. Hand tool, spacebar, great. Cool. Pressing the S tool, setting my clone source, same as in Photoshop. Using my brackets to increase the size, same as in Photoshop. And then I'm just going to paint that over. It's not perfect, but it looks perfect to me. That's fine. The goal in this kind of work is effectiveness, and that's pretty effective. So that's been removed. Great. I'm happy with that. I chose this image because we got a spot there. As you can see, that spot is caused by dust on the lens. So in Photoshop, what I would do, I would just press J, and J gives me the spot remover tool. Let's see if it works here. Yes, we got something. Yep, the healing brush tool, same thing, right? Cool. Now there's a difference. It's asking me to click and set a source. So let's go ahead and set a source for that. Although that's kind of the same as the clone stamp tool, isn't it? I mean, there's not much of a difference. So J does that. Just for fun, what I'll do, I'm just going to remove. So there's something different in Photoshop. Pressing J will cycle between. Pressing it again will cycle between these ones. Blemish removal tool. I think that's kind of what I'm looking for. Yeah, that's the same as in Photoshop. That's actually what I'm looking for. I guess they changed. So I guess I'll press J a few times. As you can see, that's working very effective. There's that twig there. But this only does once. Sorry, so there is a difference between this. So in this case, for this twig, I'm just going to use clone stamp tool. A little bit rough there. Let's see the other tools that we've got. In painting, I heard that's what they call it now. Yeah, in painting. That's what they call it in Affinity. Anyway, let's move on. Save that. Now there's something I didn't notice. Look at that. Save history with document. That means in the future, I'll be able to change those again. Let's try that out. I haven't seen this before. Save history with document. Enabling save history means that anybody you send a document can see everything you did. Great. Do you still want to enable save with history? Yes. Yes. So that's saving it there. AF Photo is their default version. Now Photoshop, when you save something and you close Photoshop, you lose your history states. You get that document, but you lose your history states. So there you go. There's a difference between, there's all my history states. That's pretty cool. There's a difference that you get between this and what you would get. So there you go. That's a pretty cool feature. Let's close this, move on. Here we go. Here's the final image. In my job, I do a lot of editing of portraits. I wanted to show you one of those portraits, but I figured, well, it's kind of a thing. Well, I don't really want to use a client's portrait for this, as it might cause a bit of problems. So I just used my own image. Forgive me for my not being too photogenic. We're just gonna, and I'm also not in focus. That is the photographer's fault. So just pressing J gives me the healing brush tool. I'm just going to remove a few things here and there. Let's remove that. Oh no, I got to set a source again. press J again, I get that tool, the blemish removal tool. Bada bing, there it goes. Bada bing, there it goes. Bada bing, bada bing, bada bing. So same as in Photoshop. Yeah, I should have shaved before this image. You want to put some white in the eyes. Pressing X changes the color as in Photoshop. That's great. Zooming in. Cool. We're going to go into Refine Edge. Well, this one just calls it Refine Selection. And then we have my options. A little bit messy there. No, that's not quite doing the trick. Oh, this is embarrassing. Sorry, that never happens. I promise. I swear. Okay, anyway, let's fix it up a little bit. Feather it. Don't want to cut it or increase it. Okay, so it looks like clearly there is a learning curve. Oops. Selecting the inverse. What I did like about this is that you do get select inverse, the invert selection. You got a whole button for that, so that's something that is cool. You don't get that in Photoshop. So let's add a mask to that. Ding, nope. I want to invert it, and then add a mask. Groovy, cool. I'll have to fix up around the edges there, but you can't notice that, right? That's all good. And then I can select my mask, use my brush tool, increase it, and then alternate between positive and negative colors with X. Adjust the opacity, and there you go. So there is a difference between this and, say, Photoshop using the crop tool, which is at C. So in summary, there is a learning curve, but yeah. Oh, another cool thing, watch this. So I've got my layer selected, that's groovy. I want to do something with it, so let's minimize it. Firstly, I don't have to press Shift, right, to constrain it. In Photoshop, you always have to push Shift to constrain something, so you don't get a warped effect. That's cool. So there's my my person there. It is a bit slow sometimes, but my computer might be a bit slow. Whatever. Okay, cool. So now, if you didn't notice anything there, no big deal. What happened there, I shrank it down and then I increased it. Photoshop, when you shrink something down, it deletes all those pixels. Affinity Photo, it didn't. It kept all those pixels. Now, this may be because Photoshop did that back in the day when those things weren't needed to keep things optimized, but maybe now in 2015 that's not necessary. Either way, Affinity Photo doesn't do that. When you resize something, it keeps it at the same size. So that's quite pretty cool. I'm getting a bit tired of my picture. I'm just gonna mess around here just for funsies. What should I do? What should I do? Let's just cut my head off. Goodbye. Okay, cool. So a few more features just to keep your eyes on, which I like. The assistant. You got to keep your eye on this because you might change something and you might not know that there will be a domino effect where actually in the process you adjust the layer. You create a you rasterize a file, something along those lines. So keep your eye on that. Live filters. Live filters are pretty cool. Let's go into live filters. You can effect change on an image and do it live, as you can see there. Whereas in Photoshop, it's you get a preview, you get another window along with it. So that's okay. Let's talk about exporting. You can export something as a PSD, which is Photoshop file. You have all your usual options there, and it is quite a lot more visually easier to work around than in Photoshop. Plus, you also do have the export feature, export persona here, where you. So I went through 4 images, and I was able to do everything that I needed to do with them. There was a learning curve, that's a fact. There were things which I struggled with, but that's quite to be expected. I've only been working on this for a couple of days now, so that is really good. It is a serious, honest to God image manipulation program. It what it lacks, there are a few things that it lacks. Plugin support. If you happen to use a lot of plugins for your workflow that you just cannot live without, that's going to be an issue for you. So don't jump the ship just yet. It's difficult to compete against Adobe. Why? Because Adobe is absolutely entrenched within the design community. To go against them can be quite difficult. I'm always nervous if I export an image here in a PSD and then I send it to someone else halfway across the world. Will they get the exact thing that I am seeing? I don't know. That could be an issue for you. But I think first and foremost, this is version 1, right? So this is pretty good, and it's only gonna get better. Another thing to keep in mind: the price. You don't have to. I really do see this as for a secondary computer. So in your workplace, you might have one computer which is just based for printing an image or making minor adjustments, or if you see some last minute spelling mistakes, that can take care of it. Why would you put an entire copy of Creative Cloud on there? Or if you're going away on holiday, you want to bring you don't want to bring your main MacBook Pro, but you have maybe your MacBook Air or your wife's MacBook Air. You can install this on there and just use it when you need it. So I really do see this as a secondary system. For what it's worth, I think it's fantastic, and it's brand new. It's at a cheap price. Price might vary for where you are. So all in all, I'm gonna give this probably about 8.5 out of 10, 4.5 stars, 84%. We're gonna give this probably about a B plus, right? Etc. Etc. Press subscribe, or else you'll be in big trouble. Thank you very much. Good night.